Tower Heroes is alright in terms of balancing. I would say there's some rather odd balancing, whether they're unintentional, intentional, or somewhere in between. We're going to go over some balance decisions that are quite questionable, but might have been ignored. Let's start with some rules they usually follow. Every tower has to be somewhat unique in a way. Towers aren't based on when you unlock them, and a common pattern is them getting a decent power boost at level 3 compared to level 2, and there's no direct upgrades between heroes, though that rule has been broken for like one of them though. Let's start with an unpopular option, Slime King. It's rather basic, not terrible, but people would have the utility of Oddpaw and Cart Kid instead of Slime King. And its rather low base stats make it unable to defend on its own and only really being useful for cleaning up after a dumpster child. Slime King has two things going for it though. The slime's giving effects and the ability it unlocks at max level. Both of these, however, are insanely flawed. The effect only does 1 DPS. Yes, 1 DPS. For max Slime King, you'd expect it to at least be on par with level 3 dump. Let's move on to the ability. It summons himself with 7k health and a fairly slow walk speed. All that for 20k mana, probably not the best cost and efficiency, but it's whatever. Too bad you're never gonna use it, because Bomb Flow is just better in every single way, and it's on a tower you'd actually wanna bring. Which removes the one utility Slime King could have had. I also forgot to mention that you can't use these past the first use because of the price increases. Now I know the reason why they did this, but it's still really stupid. Bomb Flow isn't bad, but it completely fails at what it wants to do. You can't really use the explosive damage, so it just ends up being another 2.5k damage to a single enemy instead of something similar to an airstrike ability. I really don't like both abilities. If Slime King ability was added first, then Bomb Float would have probably never been added. Also, Bomb Float damages other summons, mainly crows and bees, which isn't that good. It just isn't good. Because you already have a summon ability, a lot of people, instead of picking Slime King, will pick Cart Kid. A rather popular option due to its invincibility, making it a good crowd control option. The problem is that it's arguably a worse version of Slime King before level 5, and in my opinion, at least, he feels better for straight up burst damage rather than actual crowd control. One thing I always thought of when Cart Kid got nerfed was make the damage fall off based on the duration of the ability rather than enemies hit. Cart Kid is objectively useless until level 5, pretty much the opposite of Slime King. Another tower that's pretty useless until max is Goblino. And I don't really like Goblino. Goblino is a stun tower similar to Bite, providing a slightly longer stun and damage at the cost of being able to stun on demand and micromanagement. As a small bonus, you can sell the traps for mana. Not really useful, but you can certainly use it. So far, kind of useless. The damage in question isn't really enough to make a difference, especially for tankier enemies, compared to how versatile Bite is, but this all changes at level 5 when he unlocks the Crucifix ability. For the cost of 60k mana, he places down a Crucifix which does 10% of the boss's HP and stuns them for 10 seconds. Goblino and Bite also share the same cooldown, but for some reason it's 20 seconds for Goblino and 25 for Bite, which is weird but probably intentional somehow. With the way cooldowns work, the stun more so has a 14-second cooldown rather than a 20-second cooldown. This is intentional, and this causes you to be able to stun a boss for almost 20 seconds. The damage quickly stacks up with melee towers like Chef and Yasuke. This is insane, especially considering most bosses were balanced around Bite's base stun, never forgiving them for absolutely nerfing Mothership and doing her dirty like that. You could easily make the argument that it's balanced around being harder to micro, the cost, and usually only needing one, but still. Not really taking this from anywhere, but what if Goblino did 1000 damage per trap with a slight rate buff too? Goblino has a similar issue with Kirkid, with its only use being at level 5, and arguably being better than its competitors in a bad way. Bunny is a pretty underrated tower up until Make a Cake. We aren't really going to talk about Make a Cake balancing though, but something that has nerfed Bunny since forever. The Bunny ability is supposed to buff his damage, while also nerfing his rate. This made it so Bunny had a minimal to no DPS increase when you actually used the ability. To add insult to injury, Make a Cake tried making Bunny less reliant on the ability, but they forgot to remove the rate nerf, which basically just nerfs him, which is hilarious. Not really, but still, hilarious. The only Make a Cake balance I'm gonna be talking about is Keith. He has similar issues to Kirkid, like damage fall off making him less useful at his own job, and arguably being better for direct damage, not really, but Make a Cake nerfed his damage with a buffed damage fall off. The problem is that the only thing that got affected was that his damage gets capped at 30%. They pretty much misled us into thinking his damage fall off got buffed, when it was really just a damage cap. As a last minute thing, I'm going to be talking about Fracture. This time, we are going to be talking about the Make a Cake balancing for real this time. Fracture's original purpose was to be cracked DPS at the cost of range and being fat, similar to Turret in TDS. Not that his DPS was really great, as you're still kinda better off using other towers. In Make a Cake, they nerfed his footprint by an unnoticeable amount, upped his price which nerfed his main strength of level 4 being so cost efficient, and nerfed his DPS at max level. Kinda goes against his original design, but what's worse is that they called it a buff when it was really just a nerf on an already bad tower. I have no real rebalance for Fracture as they're just doing everything they can to not rework him, so like... These are just my opinions about certain really niche but questionable balancing. I've got a decent opinion on Tower Heroes balancing, I think it's alright. Expect a video about the history of the strongest towers in this game. Please like and subscribe if you've gone this far, why haven't you already? See you later.